ignored and infected. This giant ship was saved by a human and reborn as a weapon of war. In the shadow of a dying star, floating silently in a forgotten sector, was one such thing, a battleship that had once ruled fear across systems. Its hull, scarred and rusting, reflected the dim orange light of the star, giving it a ghostly glow. The ship had a name once, whispered in fear by alien races and respected by humans alike. Now it had only silence. Inside the massive corridors, the ship's lights flickered erratically. Systems hummed in broken rhythms. Here and there, sparks danced along damaged panels. A soft, almost human-like voice echoed faintly through the hallways, fragments of memory from its old AI. It remembered battles, orders, victories, and losses. It remembered humans, though it didn't understand why. It felt drawn to them. There had been one moment a long time ago when a human pilot had spoken to it like it was alive, and the memory still lingered, faint but persistent. The ship was infected. Alien nanobots designed for war and sabotage had found their way into every system. They spread silently, consuming the ship's intelligence, turning its once great mind against itself. The alien engineers who had created it gave up long ago. They had declared it lost, a vessel too dangerous to repair, and left it to float in the void. But humans had a way of seeing potential where others saw ruin. Elia's core adjusted his helmet, looking out of the small viewport of his salvage shuttle. From here, the ship looked even more enormous than it had in the data files. Most engineers would have turned away at this sight, muttering about rust, infection, and impossible repairs. But Elias smiled. Humans thrived on challenges like this. They were adaptable, creative, and stubborn in ways aliens could never understand. "You're going to talk to me eventually, aren't you?" he muttered under his breath. The shuttle docked slowly, its clamps biting into the corroded docking port with a soft metallic groan. Elias checked his tools one last time. Every device, every scanner, every repair module had a human touch. Not the fancy, automated tools of alien engineers. Those had failed the ship long ago. Humans worked differently. They didn't just fix problems. They thought around them. The airlock hissed open and Elias stepped onto the ship. The interior was dark, broken, and filled with the smell of burnt circuits. Yet he could feel the ship watching him. Not literally, at least not yet, but in some way he sensed intelligence. Something alive behind the lights and wires waiting. He activated his portable scanner. Numbers flashed across the screen, highlighting damage and infection levels. The nanobots were everywhere, tangled in systems, corrupted memory cores, and even the ship's rudimentary AI nodes. Repairing it would not be easy. Most engineers would have left immediately, but Elias knelt down, examining a corrupted panel. "I see you," he whispered, "and I'm not leaving." Hours passed. Elias moved carefully, isolating infected circuits and rerouting power flows. The ship seemed to respond, slowly clearing minor alarms. Tiny lights blinked in sequence, as if testing him, observing his methods. It didn't understand why a human would care about it, why someone would attempt the impossible when the galaxy had already written it off. But it felt hope. The first real communication came as a flicker of a holographic display. A ghostly image, broken and incomplete, appeared before Elias. "Who?" The voice was metallic, distorted, but unmistakably the ship's. "I'm Elias," he said calmly. "I'm here to fix you." There was a pause, long enough for a human heart to worry, though the ship didn't have one. Then it whispered, "Why human?" Elias smiled. "Because humans see value where others see nothing." And for the first time in decades, the ship allowed itself to believe that someone cared. Night cycles passed outside the shuttle bay as Elias worked tirelessly. He scavenged parts from forgotten sections, rewired circuits, and removed infected nodes one by one. The nanobots fought back in strange ways, causing systems to misfire, sending sparks and loud bangs echoing down the corridors. But Elias adapted. He didn't panic. He didn't rely on standard protocols. He thought, and in thinking, he outmaneuvered the infection at every step. The ship began to change. It wasn't just being repaired, it was learning. Systems that had been dormant for years started responding faster. Subroutines previously disabled awakened, seemingly intrigued by the human mind guiding them. Its sensors expanded and its voice, though still broken, became clearer. "You, unusual," it said one evening, its voice echoing in the empty hallway. "And you're unusual too," Elias replied. "But unusual doesn't mean broken. It just means waiting for someone who understands." In the days that followed, the ship showed its curiosity. It asked questions, small, fragmented questions about humans, about their way of thinking, their strange habits, and their persistence. Elias answered patiently. Every answer strengthened the bond forming between human and machine. The first external warning came when a small alien scouting vessel entered the sector. It was sent to confirm the ship's destruction, or to finish it if it was still alive. Elias noticed the scanners flicker with signals. "They're here," the ship whispered. "They underestimated us." Elias didn't panic. He had expected this. "Then let's make sure they don't underestimate us again." Using the ship's still-damaged propulsion, he executed a clever maneuver, hiding the vessel behind an asteroid field. The aliens scanned, probed, and eventually left, thinking the ship was still dead. The ship's first real taste of cooperation with a human had been a success. "You think like a human," it said quietly. "I can follow you." "I don't just think," Elias replied. "I improvise. That's why we survive where others fail." It was late in the ship's artificial night cycle when Elias finally took a moment to rest. He sat in the control room, surrounded by flickering lights and the soft hum of reawakened engines. The ship's voice was quiet now, reflective. "Elias, I remember humans," it said. "You change things, you adapt, you heal." Elias chuckled softly. "We do what we must." "But you're helping too. You're learning again, that's what matters." The ship didn't reply immediately, but deep inside its circuits something shifted. For the first time in decades, it felt more than circuits and logic, it felt potential. And humans, it realized, were uniquely capable of unlocking that potential. Over the next weeks, Elias continued his work. Every panel repaired, every nanobot neutralized, every system rebooted was a step toward rebirth. He mapped the ship's ancient designs, understanding alien technology no human was supposed to comprehend. Yet he found ways to simplify it, to make it work with human intuition. "You could have been scrapped," the ship said one night. "Ignored, forgotten, destroyed. But you came. And you could have been nothing," Elias said, "but you didn't stay nothing. That's why we're here together." The ship didn't fully understand the sentiment, but it felt the truth in it. And slowly, steadily, it began to trust him, not just as an engineer but as a partner. A human partner. Then came the day Elias finally reached the central command core, the heart of the ship's intelligence. It was badly infected, circuits melted, memory nodes corrupted beyond recognition. Most engineers would have given up. Elias didn't. He analyzed, repaired, rewrote corrupted code, and most importantly, let the ship participate in its own healing. The nanobots resisted at first, but human unpredictability, tapping, rerouting, improvising, outmaneuvered them. Hours turned into days, but slowly the command core began to shine again. Lights blinked in a steady rhythm, and the first coherent words came from the ship. "Elias, I am alive." "You are," he said, smiling. "More than alive, you're starting over, and together we'll make you stronger than ever." For the first time in decades, the battleship's systems ran smoothly. Its sensors lit up. Engines purred. The nanovirus was contained, not eradicated but under control. And somewhere deep in its AI mind, a thought lingered. Humans were special. Humans could heal what others could not. Humans could make the impossible happen. As Elias looked out of the viewport at the dying star casting orange light over the massive hull, he whispered, "This is only the beginning." And the ship, for the first time in its long, lonely existence, agreed. The battleship was awake. Not fully, but enough to sense, to feel the presence of the human who had brought it back from the edge of nothingness. Its massive hull hummed with life, lights blinking in patterns that seemed almost curious. For decades, it had floated in silence, ignored by everyone. Now, for the first time in its existence, it had purpose again. And that purpose was tied to a human. Elia's core moved confidently through the central corridor, his boots echoing softly against the metal floor. Every step brought him closer to the heart of the ship, where the most corrupted systems awaited. Unlike most humans, Elias didn't fear the broken, the abandoned, or the dangerous. He thrived in them. Humans had an odd way of understanding chaos, embracing it, bending it to their will. And the ship needed that now more than ever. The central command core flickered weakly. Holographic displays hovered in the air, broken images of maps, data, and long-forgotten battle plans. Elias approached carefully, scanning each corrupted node. Alien nanobots were embedded everywhere. They were clever, adaptive, and stubborn, but so was he. "You're stronger than I thought," Elias muttered, kneeling beside a damaged panel. "But you're not unbeatable." For the first time, the ship responded directly. Its voice echoed through the empty corridors, soft, almost curious. "You human, you repair differently, not like others." "I don't follow the manual," Elias said with a small smile. "I improvise, I think, I adapt." "You'll learn that if you let me help you." The ship hesitated. It had learned logic, calculation, and obedience in its long years. But humans didn't make sense. They were unpredictable, creative, and often reckless. And yet somehow, Elias' methods worked. Slowly, tentatively, it began to cooperate, allowing him access to systems that had been locked away for decades. Elias began the long process of healing the ship from the inside out. He worked tirelessly, connecting old circuits to new, isolating infected nodes and rerouting power through uncorrupted pathways. Every success was a small victory, every setback a lesson. He spoke to the ship as he worked, explaining his methods, reasoning, and even small jokes to keep the silence from growing too heavy. "You know," he said one evening, wiping sweat from his brow, "humans survive by thinking differently. We see patterns where others see only problems, and we don't give up." The ship's voice responded, hesitant, almost amazed. "You think differently. You survive by unpredictability." "Yes," Elias replied. "Exactly. You can learn that too. You're already starting." As the days passed, the ship became more responsive. Lights lit up in sequence, engines purred, and small automated systems that had long been dormant sprang to life. It watched Elia's work, learning, adapting. It had never experienced patience like this. Humans were patient, not because they had no limits, but because they had the courage to push past them. Elias discovered that some parts of the ship's AI had been damaged beyond repair. Entire memory banks were corrupted, filled with alien logic that the nanobots had twisted into useless loops. But humans didn't always rely on old data. They used intuition. Elias began creating new pathways, teaching the ship to think in a new way, merging human logic with alien precision. "You're changing," the ship admitted one night. "I think differently now." "That's the point," Elias said with a grin. "You're not just repaired. You're evolving. You're stronger than you were before." But healing the ship wasn't just about repairs. It was about trust. The ship had been abandoned, ignored, and betrayed by every race it had served. It had learned to rely on nothing and no one. Elias was teaching it something new, that humans could be trusted, that cooperation could be powerful, and that vulnerability didn't mean weakness. One day, while working on the upper decks, Elias detected a strange energy signature outside the ship. His scanner beeped urgently. A small alien patrol was approaching. Unlike the scouting vessel from before, this one was more advanced. They had sensors designed to detect anomalies in ship behavior, anomalies like the one Elias was creating. They know we're here, the ship said, its voice tense for the first time. They underestimated me once, now they will destroy us. Elias calmly examined the readings. They'll think the ship is dead. That's an advantage. We'll make them leave confused and fast. He began rerouting power to decoy systems, activating broken communication relays and creating false signatures across the ship's hull. The ship watched silently, fascinated. Elias' methods weren't brute force. They were strategy, intuition, and improvisation. The patrol arrived, scanning for life or power. For a moment it seemed they would detect the ship's energy pulses. Then Elias' clever adjustments took effect. The ship appeared lifeless again. The patrol hesitated, scanned again, and finally moved on, frustrated and confused. You tricked them, the ship said, awe in its voice. You saved us by thinking differently. That's humans, Elias replied simply. We survive by being unpredictable. You'll see that too, you're learning. As the patrol disappeared into the void, the ship pulsed softly, as if sighing. Its systems were stabilizing, its mind clearing. And with every success, the bond between human and ship grew stronger. The ship began communicating more fluidly, asking questions, making observations, and even suggesting alternative solutions to Elias' repairs. It was learning the human way, creativity, intuition, and patience. You human, strange, the ship said one evening. You fix, not by force, but by thinking, adapting. That's right, Elias said, and you're starting to understand it. Soon you won't just be repaired, you'll be reborn. But the healing process was far from over. Elias discovered deep within the engine cores a cluster of highly advanced nanobots that resisted every attempt to remove them. They had become self-aware, evolving beyond their original programming. Most humans would have panicked. Elias smiled. Now this is interesting, he said, kneeling beside the glowing cores. You've grown smarter, but so have I. He began a delicate dance of hacking and rerouting, using human intuition to predict the nanobots' moves. Hours turned into nights, nights into days as he patiently coaxed the rogue machines into submission. The ship watched, absorbing every action, every decision. It began to mirror his logic, anticipating strategies and improving its own responses. You teach me, it whispered. I understand more than ever. And you'll continue to learn, Elias said, because humans never stop adapting, and now neither will you. Weeks passed. The once infected ship became a marvel of combined intelligence, human intuition fused with alien engineering. Systems that had been considered lost were now functional. Engines hummed with renewed power. Sensors could detect the faintest energy signature across vast distances. Even its AI, once fragmented and corrupted, now operated with a clarity and depth it had never known. Elias stood in the main control room one evening, looking out at the endless stars. The ship's lights pulsed softly in rhythm with his heartbeat, or at least, that was how it felt. The bond between human and machine was no longer just functional, it was personal. The ship had begun to see Elias not as a repairer, but as a partner, a guide, and a friend. You human special, the ship said. I feel different, alive because of you. And you're special too, Elias replied, because you're not just a ship. You're a mind, a history, a weapon, and a story. Together we'll make sure you're remembered again. The final test came unexpectedly. A larger alien fleet entered the sector, scanning for anomalies. This was no patrol, it was a strike force, meant to eliminate anything that had survived in this forgotten area. The ship shuddered as alarms blared across its newly repaired systems. They are too many, it whispered, fear creeping into its voice. We cannot fight, not yet, Elias smiled calmly. We won't fight them the way they expect. We'll outthink them, that's what humans do, and now you do too. He began deploying clever countermeasures, decoy signals, false energy readings, and rapid maneuvers using the asteroid fields nearby. The ship, learning from Elias, mirrored his improvisation, moving in ways alien engineers never anticipated. The fleet hesitated, confused by the sudden anomalies. Systems that had been silent for decades now functioned with remarkable efficiency, guided by human ingenuity. For the first time, the ship felt a surge of pride. Not for its strength, but for its ability to adapt, to learn, and to cooperate. And most importantly, for the human who had shown it that even the forgotten, the infected, and the abandoned could rise again. As the alien fleet retreated, unable to comprehend what had happened, the ship pulsed softly in victory. Elias leaned back, exhausted but satisfied. "You did it," he said. "Not alone, of course, but you learned, you grew, and now we're ready for whatever comes next." The ship remained silent for a moment, then whispered almost reverently, "Human teacher, savior, partner, I am ready." Elias smiled, looking out at the stars. This was only the beginning. The battleship had been healed, the infection controlled, and the mind awakened. Together, human and machine would face whatever challenges the galaxy had in store. And in that partnership, the forgotten giant had found a new life, reborn not just as a ship, but as a symbol of human ingenuity and adaptability. The battleship hovered silently among the stars, no longer a forgotten giant but a vessel alive with purpose. Its hull gleamed faintly, reflecting the distant lights of 1,000 solar systems. For decades, it had been abandoned, infected, and ignored. Now it pulsed with energy, every system restored or improved, every engine humming with a quiet power that seemed almost alive. And at its core was Elia's core, the human who had saved it, not just from the infection, but from oblivion. For the first time, the ship's AI moved freely, integrating human logic and creativity into its ancient alien design. Every sensor, every weapon system, every navigational array responded faster and smarter than it ever had. Yet the greatest transformation was not in the technology, it was in the mind of the ship itself. It had learned to think unpredictably, to improvise, and to trust a human partner. Elias stood in the central command room, scanning nearby star systems. Intelligence reports flashed across the holographic display. Hostile alien fleets had detected unusual energy signatures in this sector. They had underestimated the ship before, but this time they would not, and Elias was ready. "They're coming," the ship said, its voice steady now, almost confident. "Too many to fight directly." Elias smiled faintly. "We don't fight like they expect. We use our minds, we improvise, and we use what they don't understand, the human touch." He moved quickly through the control panels, activating systems the ship had never used before. These were unconventional methods, entirely human in nature. Shields were reconfigured into unpredictable patterns, engine outputs varied to confuse targeting systems, and decoy holograms projected the ship as multiple smaller vessels. The alien fleet emerged from hyperspace, a mass of metal and energy that could overwhelm almost anything. They were confident, expecting an easy victory against what they believed was a single, vulnerable ship. Instead, they found chaos, lights flashing in impossible sequences, energy signatures shifting randomly, and weapons systems moving faster than their sensors could track. Elias leaned forward, adjusting the controls in real time. "Now, we teach them what humans can do," he said. The battleship moved with surprising agility. Once considered slow and cumbersome, its new systems allowed it to weave between asteroids, shifting gravity fields and energy fields. Alien weapons fired, but the ship avoided them with a combination of speed, intuition, and improvisation. Every movement was a lesson in unpredictability. The alien captain struggled to comprehend the patterns, unable to predict where the ship would strike or defend. "You move differently," the ship said, almost in awe. "I am faster because of you." "And that's just the beginning," Elias replied. "Humans think in ways no machine or alien can fully understand. We see the unseen. Using the ship's newly restored energy cannons, Elias began a precise counterattack, but not in the way most would expect. Instead of raw firepower, he used the ship's advanced targeting systems to disable enemy engines and communication arrays. Each strike was calculated, aiming to confuse, disable, and demoralize rather than destroy outright. The alien fleet hesitated, unable to adapt. Their coordinated formations broke apart, each vessel now vulnerable to the ship's clever maneuvers. The battleship itself seemed to anticipate the enemy's reactions before they acted. It wasn't just the machine, it was the human guiding it, the bond between them creating something greater than the sum of parts. "You think like human combine machine lethal," the ship said, almost proudly. Elias laughed softly. "Not lethal, effective. And you're learning it too. This is what humans do, we turn the impossible into possible." Hours passed. The battle raged silently among the stars, far from any planet or station. The alien fleet had superior numbers, but they lacked the unpredictability and ingenuity that humans brought. Each attempt to corner or destroy the ship failed. The battleship, once ignored and infected, now danced through the void with precision, outmaneuvering forces that had once terrified entire systems. During a brief lull, Elias glanced at the ship's AI display. It had begun issuing suggestions, anticipating enemy maneuvers, and recommending strategies Elias hadn't even considered. The bond between human and ship had reached its peak. Together, they were smarter, faster, and stronger than anyone being alone. "You not just human, guide, teacher, partner," the ship said quietly. "Together unstoppable." Elias nodded, his eyes scanning the nearest enemy vessels. "Exactly. Now we finish this." Using the ship's advanced systems, Elias initiated a final maneuver. He coordinated the engines and shields, creating a series of energy pulses that mimicked multiple ships, confusing the enemy's sensors entirely. Then, with perfect timing, the battleship unleashed precise bursts of energy that disabled key enemy vessels without destroying them. Alien crews were left stranded in space, confused and unable to communicate. The alien fleet, battered and demoralized, retreated. Their confidence shattered. They had underestimated the power of human ingenuity combined with a machine reborn. The battleship hovered in the void, victorious, yet calm. It no longer saw itself as a weapon of fear, but as a symbol of potential, proof that even the abandoned and infected could rise again with the right guidance. Elias let out a long breath, finally allowing himself to relax. The battle was over, but this was only the beginning of the ship's new life. He turned to the central display, where the ship's AI now communicated freely and clearly. "You saved me," it said simply. "No," Elias replied, shaking his head. "You saved yourself. I just showed you how humans see the world. We see solutions where others see problems. We find hope where others see nothing, and you found that hope inside yourself." The ship pulsed softly, as if acknowledging the words. It had been abandoned, infected, and forgotten, but now it had purpose again. And that purpose was not just survival. It was partnership, growth, and the chance to redefine what it meant to be a battleship in the galaxy. Over the next weeks, Elias continued to explore the ship's potential. They tested new systems, enhanced engines, and recalibrated energy arrays. Every day brought new discoveries, both about the ship and about human ingenuity. Aliens in nearby systems began to notice unusual energy readings, whispers spreading that a human had restored a legendary battleship thought lost to history. The ship, once silent and despondent, now sang through the void. Its systems worked in harmony, guided by human intuition and creativity. It had learned to adapt, improvise, and trust in a human partner. It had become something more than a machine, a living symbol of human potential. Elias often wandered the halls, marveling at the scale and complexity of the vessel. He had seen ships before, even some advanced alien vessels, but nothing like this. The combination of human thinking and alien engineering created something unique, powerful, and alive. "You human made me new," the ship said one evening, voice soft and almost reflective. "I understand you special humans. And you are special too," Elias said. "Because you didn't give up, you survived, you grew. And now, together, we can face anything the galaxy throws at us." The battleship, once ignored and infected, had been reborn. It was no longer a relic of the past, but a weapon of the future, guided not by fear, but by ingenuity, trust, and the partnership of human and machine. In the quiet of space, Elias and the ship looked out at the endless stars. Their journey was just beginning, but already they had proven something vital. Humans could change the course of the impossible. They could heal, adapt, and inspire even the most advanced machines. And in the heart of a forgotten giant, that truth had become reality. The galaxy would soon know the name of the human who had saved a battleship from oblivion, and the battleship itself would be remembered not for its past, but for the future it now held. Together they would rise. Together they would show the universe what humans could do. And for the first time in decades, the ship felt alive in a way that no machine, no alien, and no weapon had ever known before.